It was supposed to be a much-needed break for the Jackson family. After months of hard work, long hours, and the pressures of daily life, Anthony Jackson and his wife Jamila had decided to take their two children on a quiet vacation to the sunny shores of Florida. The picturesque beach town was the perfect spot to unwind, far away from the bustle of city life. The day had been perfect. The sun was shining, the kids were running along the beach, their laughter echoing through the air. Anthony and Jamila strolled along the water's edge, their feet sinking into the cool sand, their hands intertwined. The world felt peaceful, almost like the weight of the world had lifted for just a moment. The evening had started to wind down, the sun setting over the horizon. As the family made their way back to the car, still enjoying the warmth of the moment, something strange caught Anthony's attention. A patrol car had pulled up next to their vehicle. He didn't think much of it at first, but then the officers got out of the car, and Anthony's instinct told him something wasn't right. "Excuse me, sir," a voice interrupted his thoughts. Anthony looked up to see one of the officers approaching him. The man was tall, with a firm stance, and his face had a sharp expression that didn't seem entirely friendly. "We need to speak with you." Anthony raised an eyebrow in confusion. "What's this about?" he asked, trying to stay calm. The last thing he wanted was to get involved in some sort of misunderstanding, especially while on vacation. "We've received a report of suspicious activity around here," the officer replied, looking Anthony up and down with narrowed eyes. "We need to ask you some questions." Anthony could sense the tension in the air. He had no idea what this was about, but he kept his cool, not wanting to escalate things. "Suspicious activity?" he repeated, his voice calm but now laced with confusion. "I've been at the beach with my family all day. We've done nothing wrong." But the officer wasn't interested in listening. "You and your family fit the description," he said, his voice becoming more forceful. "We need to check you out." Before Anthony could respond, another officer approached, a more aggressive presence than the first. This officer, tall and stocky, eyed Anthony with suspicion. "You're under arrest for theft," he announced, his hand moving toward his belt. Anthony was taken aback. What, theft? He was baffled, a mix of anger and disbelief flooding his body. "I'm not sure what you're talking about. I've been at the beach all day. You've got the wrong guy." The officers ignored his protests. They began pushing him toward the squad car, their hands grabbing at his arms. The kids were standing nearby, their faces filled with confusion and fear. Jamila rushed to his side, her eyes wide with panic. "What's going on?" Jamila cried out, her voice shaking. "Why are you arresting him? He hasn't done anything." But the officers weren't listening. They continued their assault, dragging Anthony toward the patrol car, shoving him against it. Anthony could feel his anger rising. "This wasn't right. I'm an FBI agent," he shouted, his voice filled with desperation. "I work for the federal government. You can't do this." The officers paused for a moment as if considering his words, but then one of them sneered. "A black man like you, an FBI agent?" The officer scoffed. "You must be kidding." The words hit Anthony like a slap to the face. It wasn't just that they refused to believe him, it was the racist assumption that someone like him, a black man, couldn't possibly hold such a position. The blatant disregard for his identity, for who he was and what he did, was almost too much to bear. Jamila, now frantic, grabbed her phone. "I'm recording this," she shouted, hoping to capture the injustice unfolding before them. "This is wrong. You can't do this." But the officers were relentless. They continued to treat him like a criminal, despite his repeated claims of innocence. Anthony felt his body tense as they cuffed him. He had never imagined that something like this would happen, not in his wildest dreams. As the officers forced him into the back of the patrol car, Anthony's mind raced. How had this gone so wrong? He was just trying to enjoy a family vacation, and now he was being treated like a criminal. The idea that this was happening simply because of his race made him feel powerless and violated. How many other people had been through this, he wondered. How many others had been wrongly accused, mistreated, or even arrested because of their skin color?
The moments that followed were a blur. The officers had shoved Anthony into the back of the car, and Jamila was left standing there, helpless, as the kids began crying. She was desperately trying to hold it together for their sake, but the weight of the situation was too much. Her husband, the man she trusted, was being treated like a criminal, and there was nothing she could do. As the patrol car pulled away, Jamila's heart sank. She tried calling her husband's colleagues, his boss, anyone who could intervene, but she was met with nothing but confusion and disbelief. How could this be happening? Back in the car, Anthony's frustration boiled over. "I'm telling you, I'm an FBI agent," he shouted. But the officers ignored him. His mind was racing. Why couldn't they just listen to him? Why couldn't they see that this was all a misunderstanding? After what felt like an eternity, a supervisor arrived on the scene. The tall, stern officer approached the patrol car, and when he saw Anthony in the back seat, something changed in his demeanor. The supervisor, who had been stern with the officers earlier, immediately shifted gears. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded, looking at the two officers who had arrested Anthony. "He's under arrest for theft," one of the officers explained, though there was a nervous edge to his voice. The supervisor's face hardened as he took in the situation. "You arrested a federal agent?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "Are you out of your minds?" The officers were silent now, realizing the mistake they had made. The supervisor turned to Anthony, his face filled with an expression of regret. "Sir, I am so sorry. We had no idea. We'll get you out of here." The apology came too late. The damage had already been done. Anthony had been humiliated, treated unfairly, and accused of a crime he didn't commit, all because of his race. As the situation began to unravel, the story quickly went viral. Jamila had posted a video of the entire incident, and it spread like wildfire. The footage showed Anthony being forcefully arrested, the confusion and disbelief in his eyes, and the officer's refusal to believe he was who he said he was. The video sparked outrage, especially in the Black community, where this kind of racial profiling was all too common. News outlets picked up the story, and within hours it was all over social media. Racist cops arrest a Black family on vacation, not knowing the father is an FBI agent, became a headline that captured the nation's attention. The story was filled with shock, anger, and disbelief. But for Anthony, it was much more than that. This wasn't just a headline to him. This was his life, his family, and his career being jeopardized by ignorance and hatred. The officers involved in the incident were suspended, and an internal investigation was launched. But for Anthony, the emotional scars would take much longer to heal. He had always believed in the justice system, but this incident had shaken his faith. The racist assumptions and treatment he had faced were a stark reminder of the challenges Black people continued to face, even in the most unexpected. What would you do if you were in Anthony's shoes? How would you react to being falsely arrested? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more powerful stories that demand change.